Hello everybody! If you want all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 841, The Quantum Chemist's Mistake. Upper Advanced. Arthur stood before the gleaming glass cylinder, his reflection distorted by the thick curvature of the experimental chamber. For 12 years, he had dedicated every waking hour to the study of molecular displacement. His colleagues at the university often joked that he was more stable than the isotopes he measured. Yet today, Arthur felt a strange tremor in his hands. The air in the laboratory smelled faintly of ozone and expensive cleaning fluid. The experiment was deceptively simple in its premise. He intended to shift a single gram of copper from one side of the room to the other without it passing through the intervening space. It was not magic, he insisted to the board of directors, but rather a precise manipulation of the fabric of reality. He adjusted the dials on his console, ensuring the cooling systems were running at maximum capacity. The hum of the machinery rose to a sharp, metallic whine. With a steady breath, Arthur pressed the primary ignition switch. For a fraction of a second, the light in the room seemed to fold in on itself. There was no explosion, no flash of fire, and no dramatic surge of energy. Instead, there was a profound, heavy silence that felt like being underwater. He stared at the receiving platform, expecting to see the small copper cube. It was not there. Confusion turned to a cold, creeping dread as Arthur looked around the lab. The copper had not moved to the platform. Instead, every blue object in the room had turned a brilliant, shimmering gold. His coffee mug, his technical manuals, and even the ink in his pens had transformed. He looked down at his own hands and saw that his blue sapphire ring was now glowing with a metallic yellow luster. He realized then that he had not moved matter through space, but had accidentally altered the fundamental frequency of color itself. The equations on his screen began to flicker and rewrite themselves, suggesting that this change was permanent and expanding. Within an hour, the effect would spread beyond the laboratory walls, turning the blue sky of the entire world into a ceiling of solid gold. Arthur sat down in his chair and watched the monitors. There was no way to reverse the process, as the energy required to undo the shift would tear the atmosphere apart. He picked up his golden mug and took a final sip of lukewarm coffee. As the sun began to set outside, reflecting off a sky that was no longer blue, he accepted that he had finally made his mark on history, though not in the way he had planned. If you learned a new word today, please make sure to subscribe so you can practice again next time. Vocabulary notes. Gleaming. This adjective describes something that is shining brightly, often because it is very clean or polished. In the story, it refers to the glass cylinder in the lab. It suggests a sense of newness or high quality. Similar words: shimmering, glistening, lustrous, polished. Example: the morning sun hit the gleaming windows of the skyscraper, making it difficult for the others below to see clearly. Distortion. This is a noun that refers to the action of giving a misleading account or impression, or the change in the natural shape of something. In a scientific context, it often refers to how an image changes when viewed through a curved lens. Similar words: deformation, contortion, twist, misrepresentation. Example: the heat rising from the hot asphalt caused a visual distortion of the horizon, making the road look like it was made of water. Premise. A premise is a previous statement or proposition from which another is inferred or follows as a conclusion. In the story, it refers to the basic idea or theory that Arthur's experiment is built upon. Similar words: hypothesis, assumption, thesis, proposition. Example: the basic premise of the film is that humans can communicate with animals through a new type of technology. Intervening. This term describes something that occurs or exists between two things or events. In the narrative, it describes the physical space between the starting point and the destination of the copper cube. Similar words: intermediate, connecting, central, mediating. Example: in the 3 years intervening between his graduation and his first job, he travelled across most of South America. Luster. This noun describes a gentle sheen or a soft glow, especially that of a partly reflective surface like metal or silk. It is often used to describe the way light interacts with minerals or expensive fabrics. Similar words: gloss, sheen, brilliance, radiance. Example: after hours of polishing the old silver trophies, they finally regained their original luster and looked brand new. Story written by Gemini. Image created by Gemini. To read, see all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, Unicorn Heads.